Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some, or hopefully a lot of money on the internet. Load up for discussion today. We've got Bitcoin decoupling from stocks. We said it. A lot of people say don't say it, but we've said it. Is it going to continue? We'll discuss what's going on. The S&P is down, Bitcoin's up, gold is all-time high as well. And spot ETF inflows into Bitcoin are as high as 380 million, I think, in the last day. China postures to pull back on US private equity investing. And finally, we'll be talking a little bit about creator platform Base. On Base, Zora announcing its token, which is going to go live tomorrow. We've got a bit of commentary there too. We're also going to be talking about Bitcoin dominance today and just how we're thinking about that, what that means, how we've been positioning, and how we are thinking about moving forward in that respect. So interesting talk today. As usual, I've got Legendary in the co-host seat with me. Also got Rahim as well. Cannot wait to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky, and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Rahim, coming straight to you, president of ArtStyle, seeing all kinds of announcements coming out in the last couple of, or the last 24 hours even, about the things that you're doing in Token 2049. Sounds pretty exciting. How's that all going for you before we talk about the market stuff?
GM, everybody. It's good to be back. If I end up missing a week, it just feels like a weird thing that I've like skipped. So it's awesome to see you guys. Yeah, Token 2049 is going to be an awesome week. We are hosting a bunch of events. We obviously announced the Pudgy event. We're doing like certain experiences which people are not used to seeing in Web3 or just like at events. So I'm excited for you guys to join in, for more and more of the community to kind of like, I think it's important, whether it's like Dubai or Singapore or like different countries, to kind of get exposure to the non-crypto Twitter Web3 scene, kind of get into the deep pockets of like the local culture when it comes to like Web3, and kind of understand who's building what products are coming out there, what's the VC environment over like. And ArtStyle, of course, is a Dubai-based community and stuff. So hopefully we can give a lot of people a taste of that.
So my one question before I throw it to Legendary is, you're making it sound kind of secretive. Like, are there some things that you have revealed, some things that you have not revealed? What can you say? What can't you say about these experiences that Web3 has never seen?
Come on, guys. I thought like announcement of an announcement is like a thing that we're all used to at this point. But a lot of it is like a surprise. They're like, a lot of people are going to have their PFPs with something silly we did. It's funny because Bichak, I've spoken to you about it. Legendary has no idea that his like penguin is going to be there with something silly I worked on and stuff. So yeah, just a bit of like details and like a lot of cool experiences. So I guess we find out.
Love it. Love the anticipation. Legendary, how is everything going on your side? What are, we had a bit of a long weekend. We took Easter, Good Friday. I don't know the names that people call it in different countries. We took Good Friday off. We took Easter Monday off. That's at least what we call them. How was your longer weekend? How are you feeling going into this week?
It was very good. It was very relaxed. I actually did not check gold prices, Bitcoin prices, stock prices. I had no idea what's going on in the market. It's the first time probably in like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years that I have taken a more than 24-hour break from refreshing CoinMarketCap and other websites. And it was very relaxed until the very moment when Rahim said that he's doing things to my penguin without me knowing that. And now I am anxious.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds problematic, Rahim. It sounds problematic.
Well, when you're in the Dubai turf, when you're in my turf, you're exposed to this craziness.
Consent is implied in this case. It's president of Dubai here. He made the call for the weather. He delivered on that. So now he's going to deliver on these events. Looking forward to attending those next week. But look, let's get into it. As usual, get people up to speed with everything that is going on in the market. We're going to start with the majors as usual. starting with Bitcoin, which is almost up 2% to 88.5K. Absolutely love to see that. We've got ETH, which is flat, unsurprisingly, at 1.6K, underperforming the rest of the majors. XRP is that, well, okay, XRP is also a major now, so that's down 1% to $2.10, so that is doing worse than ETH. BNB is flat at $605. Solana is actually flat today as well at 139. That is up 6% on the week though, whereas ETH is flat on the week as well, whereas Bitcoin is up 3% on the week. So that's a bit further context into those majors. We'll talk about some other interesting price action in a second too, though. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we've got Doge up a couple of percent, Pepe's up 3%, Trump's up 3%. Fartcoin being the clear leader. Remember I spoke about doing a little DCA into Fartcoin. I think it was either last week or the start of last, I can't even remember when. That's up almost 20% on the day, up 17%. To pass $1 now, almost $1.10. Bonk is up 3% as well. XPX is up 4%. So this move is kind of a general green day across the market. Popcat, interestingly, is up 23% as well. That is one which still seems to have a lot of life. Ket on AVAX seems to be one which is doing particularly well as well, up double digits, up almost 14%. So those AVAX coins having some life too. Apart from that, some of the AI ones going down. AI16Z down 5%. That's probably just the main one I'd call out. The AIXBT down 1% as well. So no specific bid for the AI stuff. Getting into the main headlines themselves, we have, just bringing this up, we have Bitcoin decoupling from stocks. S&P is down 2%, Bitcoin's up 2%, 88K, with the largest spot ETF inflows in weeks at $380 million. Gold is also approaching 3.5K. Very curious to hear Legendary's breakdown. So what's going on with stocks going down, Bitcoin going up? Is this the decoupling that everyone has been hoping for or aspiring towards? We will discuss in a bit. We've got China posturing to pull back on US private equity investing. We keep talking about the significance of China in all of this. So we'll touch on what's going on there. And then finally, Deutsche Bank and Chartered Bank seek to expand crypto operations in the US. Circle, BitGo, and other firms are planning to apply for bank charters. So it seems like there's this consolidation or various different entities. Banks are becoming more crypto exchanges are becoming more like banks. All of these things are kind of becoming one and the same, I think, or that's the direction we're moving into. So I just wanted to reflect on that. Some notable price action, which we'll touch on in a moment in more detail as we discuss. Fartcoin is up 20%, as I mentioned. Base meme coin launcher Clanker is up 20% as well to $48. That's very interesting because we have the Zora launch taking place tomorrow. So, that valuation is interesting to note when you're trying to think of what Zora is going to come out at. Bitcoin dominance has hit a new 5-year high at 64%. I think that's super relevant. That's something we want to discuss more today. And the Sol ETH chart puts in another all-time high as ETH continues to struggle against the other majors. So those are the main headlines. Ledger, is there anything we need to know on the NFT side?
Yeah, actually, let's take a quick look what's going on the NFT side of things. There is one collection that is standing out, which we haven't touched on in a couple of weeks, I'd say, and it is the Good Vibes Club. Good Vibes Club has had a massive week, up 113% over the last 7 days. Also has had a beautiful 24 hours, up 23%, and is back at a very, very impressive 0.53 ETH floor. If you basically look at the 30-day chart, obviously when we go back towards reveal, it traded pre-reveal a bit higher, but it has shot up and is sitting, again, if we ignore the first 48 hours of trading around the reveal, pre-reveal, it's actually at all-time high.
Interesting. Well done to them. They did a great job on the socials and the launch, and I thought that was picking stuff out. So that's interesting.
I think, B, we lost you for a moment.
Yep,
yeah,
Rahim,
Rahim, he's gone for you as well. Okay. Then I will go back to the Web3 Roundup to bring the rest of the news from around the space to you, and we'll see if B will be back with us after that. Let me quickly find it and share it. There we go. Michael Saylor is announcing another BTC buy, $555 million this time. Circle to build out a payments network to include invoice and payment support, which I think is a pretty interesting headline to have. Vitalik proposing the change from EVM to Risk V architecture in an attempt to make ETH L1 more competitive. Then the creator platform on Base Zora announcing its token to go live tomorrow, which Bichik has just mentioned before. In terms of some more news, Multiplier founder Loris announces they will return all pre-sale raise funds, but still honor airdrop as funds accepted, citing both a strong revenue and also no need for the raise. That was on the back of a sale that they had going on for 24 hours on Fjord, the launch pad, and then canceled that. OpenSea to announce one-click wallet switching, then new blockchain for stablecoins Plasma, announcing a major ecosystem partner Curve, and last but not least, Kaito announcing implementation of changes to project leaderboards to quote-unquote protect the InfoFi network. Rahim, going to you, is there anything standing out to you from the roundup that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think like the OpenSea stuff has been like pretty interesting. There have been like a couple of things they've just been like working on recently, and it's crazy because obviously NFT volume is not at what it used to be, but they obviously did that announcement recently where you can buy cross-chain NFTs, you can pay on like a different network and buy the ETH NFTs, which was like a great upgrade. And now, which was personally, I thought it was a very chaotic process to move between wallets because you have to sign in and move different profiles. I think they kind of changed that. So they obviously had Adam Hodler, who recently, I think that's what his name is, who recently joined their team. And I think ever since he's joined, a lot of the product advancements have been like super nice. It's just kind of nice to see like, people focusing on products as much as we focus on like speculation and hype and things like that. So yeah, I definitely think that was super interesting to see just in form of development,
Yeah, very much agree. Especially if you're a bigger collector, you will have multiple wallets, and especially also if you trade across different chains, it can be quite painful. I think that was a pretty painful process on Magic Eden for a while when you had Solana, Bitcoin, and ETH denominated chains going on your trade to go between different wallets. That could take quite some time to do that. The other thing I want to touch on, did you follow the news around Multiplier? Did you see Loris's post on that?
Yeah, I did look into it. I think it's kind of like it's kind of nice to just like seeing people sometimes be honest and raw about their thoughts and opinions. I think sometimes, of course, you have to deal with like a lot of FUD and issues and this and that. But like the fact that they were like they're gonna like return all the pre-sale funds and like kind of honor like the airdrop. It was also, I don't know if you saw, but even like the Mantra chain founder essentially ended up burning about like 50% of his own supply. And I think it's kind of nice to see like a lot of people just being like honest and organic with like a lot of mess ups that I've been having recently.
Yeah, very much agree with that. I think if things go wrong, the way that you approach that plays a very significant role, even to the extent that I saw some of the comments saying that this was a PR stunt, this was all planned, this is not organic. So it kind of goes to show that people were really surprised with that direction that he took it. Also seems
I
that
think like the Bybit CEO has also set some precedents, like because he tweeted yesterday about like all the funds that is untraceable, some of the funds that's frozen in stable coins, some of it has moved. And I was like, it's so nice to see that like even weeks later, he's like updating the community, he's talking to people. He was like, yeah, about like all out of the 5,000 bounties, only 70 of them made sense, but we are still working. And I just think like it's refreshing to see accountability on the timeline.
Yeah, which I feel like the space has been lacking for a very, very long time. And again, it goes a long way. I think Bybit has earned a lot of goodwill with that. Quickly checking in with you, B. Are you back with us? Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, beautiful. Welcome back. We just went through the roundup and have been chatting a bit on the Multiplier announcement and Loris basically canceling the sale and sharing some pretty intimate thoughts on that. Apart from that, is there anything else from the roundup that you wanted to touch on? We also spoke on the OpenSea news on the one-click wallet switching, but apart from that, we haven't touched on the other things just yet.
I think there's a lot of interesting price action, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how much this is going to bleed into the other headlines that we want to talk about, but let's do I'm going to talk about a few of them actually. I think first and foremost, Bitcoin dominance hitting the new 5-year high at 64%. So this is probably going to bleed into whatever conversation we're going to have in a little bit as well. But I just don't see, I'm curious for you guys' thoughts. I don't see a world in which this stops at the moment. I really, really think that we've got to the point where all of the other tokens that have been launched over the last 12 to 18 months, or maybe even more, we've reached complete saturation. And there are very few tokens that can come to the market in a way that is going to be meaningful for people to hold. And so I still think we'll have meme coin stuff. And then, so that's why it's interesting to tie it into the Fartcoin conversation. It's like, how is it the case that this just keeps going up with such outrageous strength compared to everything else, including some of the coins that are worth holding or that the market is deeming to be worth holding? And the two things that direction that I go into, and I've been speaking about it on the show, is, the one thing I was talking about maybe a couple of weeks ago, saying, hype is nice to buy. It's better to buy at 12 than it is to buy at 30, right? So I've kind of been going in that direction, looking not only at the hype token itself and just, slowly getting some more of that, as well as then looking into the further opportunities that you can find on Hyperliquid. So whether that's Hyperlend on the lending side, whether that's Hyperswap providing liquidity there, or Kitten Swap, trying to figure out which one's going to be the Uniswap, trying to figure out which one's going to be the staking, the main staking version of Hype. And that's, people would talk about Kinetic in a very big way in that sense. You've got Unit, which we spoke about a lot, which is the people who have brought Bitcoin and ETH to make it tradable on Hyperliquid, and people think there's going to be a token there as well. So there's the whole ecosystem of Hype, if Hype does well, is ready to kind of get built out, or is in the process of being built out. And the reason why I think Hype is doing so well is it's just printing money, guys. Like it's just printing money. I think last week it was doing $1 million a day, which is putting all of the other chains to shame in terms of just pure revenue. And they're just taking so much of it and kind of redistributing it back to token holders via buybacks, right? So it's not literally giving it back, but in effect, providing a dividend by, via buybacks of the token. So I think it's looking incredibly strong. And also, just in addition to that, think about the general context that we're in. And I know I've been posting a lot about Hyperliquid and talking about it, but the point is, in a world where volatility goes up or volatility is high, which is definitely the world that we've been in for the last few weeks post inauguration, and maybe even for some time moving forward, right? I don't know when we're going to necessarily hit some period of time where everything is calm under this administration, with the upheaval that is being instigated domestically and abroad. We're moving. My bet would be on instability, basically on volatility. And so in that environment, Hyperliquid seems to be the place where everything's going to get traded. So the two things I'm kind of looking at is like, okay, for whatever reason, I'm not going to like explicate and philosophize on why Fartcoin is doing so well. Like it is what it is. It has crazy mind share. It does huge moves up and huge moves down when there are big moves. But Hyperliquid is the other one I'm looking at quite a lot. And that's how I'm kind of dealing with Bitcoin dominance. It's like, okay, on the one hand, holding Bitcoin, got to have that bag of that, have a lot of stables based on the wins that we've had in the previous cycle. It's like, look, I'm not going to put that at risk in an aggressive way. I'm definitely not one of those people that just like rolls it forward every time. It's like, right, made all that money, going to roll it forward into the next one and take the whole risk again. But if I'm looking further down the risk curve, it's in those two directions, at least for the moment. Curious for your guys' thoughts on how, well, just my thought process and how you guys are playing a universe where Bitcoin dominance is hitting these highs, and maybe it's going to continue based on the current inflows.
I think the market speaks a pretty clear language with that, right? On the one hand, you have BTC moving up. On the other hand, you have gold being extremely volatile to the upside. I mean, we're going to touch on that on the news either way, but just gold being up 4% on a day is an insane movement. So 2 weeks ago, nothing really moved. And the market was kind of asking itself the question, where do we want to allocate money? Now, it seems that there is at least a bit of a response already, certainly with gold, because that is moving up massively. BTC now also seems to be holding up quite well. Now, the question is, how sustainable is that move? And I remember we had, I think that was at some point last year, a study that was basically looking at very impactful events like COVID, like the beginning of wars, the Ukraine invasion, and was looking how did gold react to that, how did stocks react to that, how did Bitcoin react to that, and it always showed. I think this paper always showed that Bitcoin is the one to dump the hardest first, but it's also the one to recover the quickest. Like basically, just 4 weeks after the Ukraine invasion, BTC was marching up. Very same time span with COVID, when BTC was going up after the first like COVID shock, and then basically stocks were following along. So the question is, I see more and more people speaking about this like decoupling happening. Is it happening because BTC is actually this time decoupling from stocks, or is just BTC leading a recovery and stocks will follow along? So I think that it's just way too early to answer that. We have a couple days worth of data where we see BTC up, S&P 500 and other stocks going down, but it's definitely, and even I feel like Fartcoin fits into that picture, right? It's founderless, as you said, like open interest is up. There's social interest is up, I think, another 120% month over month. And there's like not really an execution risk, but it also shows that the market still wants to speculate on something that is novel compared to like older meme coins like Pepe or whatever else. It's not willing to speculate on dozens or hundreds of meme coins at the same time, but it's still like very happy to pick one winner that has low execution risk and just pump that back up and send it above $1 billion. Personally, I am really happy with my gold buys, and I actually think if my thesis is that this instability is continuing and gold is now like running even harder than Bitcoin at the moment, which sounds insane to say, that I am pretty willing to add some more gold to my stash. I don't know if I would buy gold now if I'm a first-time buyer, but I'm happy to basically move my average price up a bit. This is how I at least look at things. What's my average price and where is it going if I buy more? And
I have a question. I have a question on that before, and then you go into what you're going to say. I saw, and this is not, you know, we have definitely not spent too much time analyzing gold in the past. So let's just get that out of the way. But I was reading that whilst you might look at the gold chart and think, oh my God, this thing is absolutely sending. If you were to compare that over time versus the S&P, it's like drastically underperformed over time. Like the S&P has been the thing over the last, I don't know how many years, maybe 50, 60 years, that has completely crushed it, like absolutely crushed it. Gold is, you know, it's always a store of value, but there's many, many years sometimes where it has been incredibly stable. So is the gold versus stocks chart something that you're interested in, whether evaluating gold, or is it just gold USD? Because this is the thing, right? We keep looking at everything against the USD number, and that's, I guess, the metric which is getting called into question more and more. It's like, well, everything's going to go up against USD at this rate, if the things that we're talking about are coming to fruition. So is that even the right metric? Do you want to be comparing it against stocks?
Yes.
I'll stop there just to give you a chance.
This is how it look. As you said, absolutely not a gold expert. Like, you know, started buying gold like a year ago, but I had no idea about the average return of gold over the last couple of decades versus stocks. For stocks, S&P 500 long-term average 9.5%, pretty similar to MSCI World. Like that has been established over decades and decades. For gold, actually, I expected it to be way lower. But if you look at the data of the last 50 years, so 70s to, well, to the last year, to 2024, including excluding the run that it had this year, the average return of gold per year is 7.98%. It's almost 8%. And if you would have asked me for a guess, like a year ago, gut feeling, I would have said like maybe 3, maybe 4%, maybe just a bit above like inflation. I would have not expected gold to be so close over the last 5 decades to the stock market performance. And that because this gap is like a rather small one. I mean, obviously, I'm not in a position where I'm selling my stocks, and the dips that I bought on the MSCI World and the S&P 500, I bought them like with a multi-decade view. But for gold, I'm more feeling that I'm happy. I was like happy to buy, and I'm happy to buy now as well, because I think this volatility is going to go on. But I probably am not as happy to keep it as a like long-term multi-year or multi-decade hold, because at some point my hope would still be that Bitcoin will become the new gold, and there will be a price point where I'm like happy to sell off my gold and basically realize that profit. And also, just to keep that in mind, my situation with that is pretty unique. And I had like an additional incentive to buy gold here in Austria, because if I hold gold for more than a year, it's not taxable if I sell it and take profits on that. So if I look at two things that have a similar performance, and I have 27.5% capital gains, I would obviously have to factor that in my head. So this is why this individual situation might not be applicable for other people, but obviously wanted to share that for full transparency.
Interesting. Shout out to the people in the comments. Got some interesting points coming in. We've got Duck Dive saying gold can only go up with fractional reserve banking. DA Sales shared a chart from 4 days ago, which might be interesting to analyze, saying gold is now outperforming the S&P 500 over the last 20 years, dividends included. Okay, so that's with dividends included. That'd be interesting to analyze in a bit more detail. Funky, your hand is raised. Raheem, I want to come to you to see how you're like dealing with this Bitcoin dominance world that we are in and that we're moving into. Funky, I want to come to you here. Welcome to the stage, my man. What are your thoughts here? How are you dealing with the increasingly Bitcoin the increase in Bitcoin dominance? Any changes? Any amendments? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, boys. Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, I still lean, going back to the beginning of the conversation, to the latter, that I don't think that this is truly decoupling. There's far too little data to say that this is the case. I love, too bad Stats isn't here this morning, his phrase of chaos hedge. I really like that. I think he kind of puts gold in that same basket. So I think that that's something to be said. I think going back to just sort of the global macro liquidity increasing, and there's that lag factor. So I really do think it's just more of that Bitcoin is always going to be the canary in the coal mine. It's going to be the first mover, especially when people start to go risk on. It was interesting that you said that the S&P across the last 50 years has crushed it, quote unquote. Think about when we left the gold standard. That was Richard Nixon in 1971. Add those together, there's your 50 years. So is it really a function of the markets, or is it more a function of the devaluation of the dollar in terms of purchasing power and what kind of assets you can hold? And these are just broadly like inflation metrics, right? So something to think about, but otherwise love the conversation so far.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what had surprised me, because obviously that's super valuable context for those who don't know, that there was a time before the 70s where the US dollar was backed by actual gold, and that stopped being the case. And this is why I thought that maybe the average performance of gold should be somewhere above the inflation rate, but not basically so close to the stock market performance. This is what I find, or this is why I found that surprising in particular.
Yeah, very good point. I think that's you got to take that into account for sure. Raheem, want to come to you here. How are you adjusting to this universe, if at all? Are you making any moves in terms of your portfolio to take into account that this is, Bitcoin is showing this incredible strength?
I love the word that you use, universe, because I'm going to take you guys on a bit of a journey, just to give like a slightly different like perspective. I feel like we're moving in this world of going back to basics. Going back to basics, we saw everyone getting obsessed with creatine all of a sudden. We've had all these like new supplements come in the last couple of years. All of a sudden, everyone's like, oh my God, like creatine is amazing and stuff. And then like gold has been like existing like since like the Egyptian times. And now everyone's like, holy shit, like gold is moving. Maybe that's what we should invest in. Fartcoin. Fartcoin is based on like the oldest joke on the internet, which is a fart joke. Boom, back to basics. So basically, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Fartcoin, whether it's gold, whether it's supplements, we are basically tapping into back to basics. You don't need to complicate your thesis. You have hyperliquid. What is it focusing on? It's focusing on volume. It's focusing on exchanges. It's focusing on like leverage trading. Again, back to basics. So the thesis is simple. We are moving into a different universe, like you put it, B-Check. And yeah, that's the thesis across different verticals of life.
I'm actually very impressed how you managed to take us through the history and talk about the ancient Egyptians and about fart jokes in the same sentence, and for that to make a ton of sense.
I'm imagining one of those, what are the Venn diagrams, and Rahim's just perfectly put hype, farts, gold, and Bitcoin all in
And
the perfect
creatine,
middle.
and creatine in there as well.
Oh yeah, and creatine. For someone without that explanation would wonder why they're all together. But okay, I like it. That's interesting. Okay, where did I want to? I wanted to continue this a little bit. Ledge, from a personal perspective, you've obviously been buying gold. You said you don't know if you'd necessarily be a new gold buyer now. Do you think as Bitcoin, like traditionally, as Bitcoin dominance goes up, people do feel a little bit more confident to speculate down the risk curve? What are you thinking when it comes to these other coins that are launching? You know, you've got Base, the creator coin for Zora coming tomorrow. You've got, you know, still a huge number of coins coming down the pipeline. Do you think we've just seen a fundamental shift now where we've seen all this stuff come now, and the market is not going to accept anything that's not truly fundamentally sound in some of the ways that Rahim described?
No, I think the market will always return to speculate. Like, markets love the bubbles. We from the tulip bubble to the AI and meme coin bubble. Personally, I just don't see anything I really want to speculate on right now. Like, because ETH is moving down so much, even if you look at some of the crypto punks that have been flipped, and people are like, oh, this guy sold it for a 40, 50 ETH profit, but is actually down a couple 100,000 because ETH is down so much. So like,
Yeah,
because ETH is showing so much weakness, I feel uncomfortable denominating my bets in ETH related stuff right now, because that drags down all the other boats, right? So I'd be happy to buy a punk and flip it for 50 ETH profit if I would pay all my expenses and all my stuff in ETH, but I just don't. So I very much look at the dollar value. The things that I'm excited for right now is the plasmas, is the stablecoin denominated chains. I think there's going to be interesting opportunities on there. The other stuff that I still continue to do is my airdrop farming, and do it on Sonic or do it in places where I can do it with stablecoins first and foremost. I think there will come a time where there's going to be a lot to speculate on, and that might change pretty quickly. The market clearly has appetite for that. We've seen a bit of a season on abstract going on in at a very small scale with big. Small scale, I say small scale because it's not a lot of money involved in there, not a lot of users as compared to like to Base or to the general state of L1s and L2s. But I think that this sentiment can also change pretty quickly. So I might, say that this week that I'm not doing anything and just chilling in stables and farming airdrops. But maybe in 2 weeks or in 2 months, that situation could be completely changed and I have something new to obsess over. But right now, I don't want to make any big bets in ETH denominated stuff, to be honest.
I mean, that is 100% true. We've spoken a lot about on the show how we would have loved for it to be different, but I personally ended up selling a lot of ETH because of how things have played out. But I think what you spoke to there is something a bit deeper, which I don't think people have digested the full consequences of. And Funky, I see your hand raised. We're going to come to you in a second. ETH doing bad is not just bad for ETH. Like, ETH is the smart contract layer that has been held up for so long, really driving innovation and pushing the space forward for a really, really long time. If that performs poorly, what that tells me, and this might not be reflected in the market in general now, because people will pick other winners, because there's always going to be smart contract transactions taking place somewhere. But what it tells me is that the tech is vulnerable. Like you can have the best tech one day and then someone will come and take your place the next. Obviously, Solana is the one that has knocked the door down so far this cycle, or the past cycle, or whatever, however you want to describe it. Now you've got Hyperliquid coming with a kind of different value prop. Obviously, you've got the Hyper EVM, but they've got this money-making crazy machine, which is the core product, which they can then use as, I guess, incentives almost to get involved in their ecosystem. And it just makes me think like, okay, well, the tech is always going to be vulnerable. And that's why when I reflect on Solana, and even coming out here to Dubai and talking to people, again, they've got a great footprint. They've got a great footprint to encourage builders and put people in the room together, get people connected with the people they need to get connected with. Because now the moat is not the tech. The tech will keep getting upgraded. Everyone's going to keep upgrading the tech. The question is, who can attract the best people? How can you incentivize business and commerce taking place? And that's the big reflection for me. The tech is not the moat. You're going to have to keep finding more people, and that's why the Sol ETH chart is hitting another all-time high. Keeps rising against ETH, I think. So, Funk, I want to come to you here for your final reflections, and then Ledge, probably want to come to you to give us any core details that we might have missed from this conversation.
Thanks, Pete. Just a quick comment about the E thing, because we kind of diverted into that conversation. I'm sure all of you guys saw while you were off. Vitalik wrote a blog about going to Risk V as a new architecture for Ethereum. We chatted about it on Coffee with Captain yesterday morning. So I did a little thread that was admittedly somewhat AI helped, because I don't know all the technical stuff. And I put that in the comments below. But I wanted to ask a legendary question. I kind of think I know the answer. What do you guys think of Pax Gold? Right, my understanding is that it is backed by physical gold. I know how Legendary feels about just the paper certificates around gold, and he prefers to hold the actual real stuff, and has his pyramid of gold bars and everything. But you guys think that there's any value in a world that's becoming increasingly digital to hold a tokenized version of gold? We always talk about RWAs, tokenization of everything. I'm just kind of curious for your thoughts while we were on that gold conversation.
Yeah, so Pax Gold has a pretty significant market cap. It's like at 770, 800 mil, somewhere in that range. So pretty established. And as you said, to the best of my knowledge, it is physically backed. But for me, there's no point in buying that because of tax reasons. Like if I buy that and trade it as a gold derivative, it's either capital gains, or maybe they're even going to make a point that's a derivative and it's going to be taxed fully at income tax. So just from a tax perspective, it's something I won't, unfortunately, touch as much as I would like. The idea to have gold on chain. Why? Because then I could use it in a DeFi context. Like I would like to basically borrow against my gold holdings and farm yield with them of some sort. But the tax disadvantage is way too large for me to touch that. And there's a lot of countries that have this, that have a specific regulation for gold that says if you hold it long enough, it's tax-free. So if you're affected by that, you really need to do the math. If not, then I think it's quite a cool thing to bring gold on chain. And again, just using it in the DeFi context is something that I would love to do, but I can't do it for tax reasons, unfortunately.
Interesting. I mean, one of the thoughts that I had for stablecoins is that we're going to have a variety of stablecoins, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure Tether had some kind of gold-backed stablecoin as well. So I think there'll be more options in future to have like interesting mixes of stablecoins, and what that might entail. I don't know entirely, but I think we will see that kind of stuff put on chain, and it'll be interesting to get exposure to. Okay, maybe a final thought here. In fact, I think we've discussed that sufficiently. Ledge, is there anything else from the general news? Because there's a bunch of things happening, right? So we've got Bitcoin decoupling, or we've got the S&P down, you've got Bitcoin up. You've got the largest spot ETF inflows in weeks into Bitcoin, whilst simultaneously ETH had further outflows, its ETF. Gold is at all-time high. You also had a couple of things here with China posturing to pull back on US private equity investing. So this like cold trade war is continuing. And then in the background of that, you also had a couple of official banks seeking to expand their crypto operations. And then you had more institutions on the crypto side applying to become banks. So you're getting this like crossover between traditional banking institutions and crypto institutions, kind of putting their hands in each other's pockets here, saying, right, we want to be in the same business as each other. In essence, that is what we are. Any thoughts here, any information we need to know here from what you've been reading into it, and any particular takeaways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we touched on so many things but the China situation. And I think it's a super interesting one because a lot of people might underestimate how big the numbers are which are at play. So the news is China state-backed funds are cutting off new investments in US private equity. That is according to an article in Reuters, that is according to the Financial Times. And they cite multiple people familiar with the situation close to President Trump, that this is the reason why China is cutting off these investments. That applies to Chinese funds, that applies to state-backed investment funds where they seek to be excluded from private equity investments in US companies. And that, again, is on the back of the massive, massive tariff war, where we now have reached 145% on Chinese exports. And Beijing has retaliated with 125% in tariffs. Now, if you take a look at something like the China Investment Corporation, the CIC, and we try to see how big those numbers actually are, the Financial Times has provided some very, very helpful context on that, saying that in the past 3 decades, Chinese state-backed investors such as CIC and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange have poured money into US private equity funds, helping to propel the sector from a niche corner of financial services to a dominant industry managing $4.7 trillion. Specifically, I tried to find some numbers for the CIC, and it's estimated that they invested $370 billion in US equities. And then from the start of the last decades, another 1.3 trillion in US bonds. So total investment is then more than 1.5 trillion. And these numbers also match what the Financial Times is sharing there. And I think that we have spoken about the bond side a lot. We have spoken about, is China selling US treasuries? What would that mean? They've been selling treasuries since 2009 in like chunks and have continued to do so because it's just not a good narrative look for them to have so much exposure to the dollar again. But it's also like a very, very good tool to negotiate. It's a very good leverage to apply. And it would hurt them a lot to sell all of that at once. But what we never have talked about is actually the equity side of things, and seeing that there's like just from the CIC, because it is such a big investment corporation, there's almost $400 billion flowing into equities, flowing into investments, flowing into private equity as well. And that money moving away and maybe either staying within China, moving into other continents or jurisdictions where China then wants to invest in, I think could be very, very significant. It's probably a sort of leverage that maybe a lot of people are underestimating right now, how impactful turning off that source of money or turning off that tap could actually be.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. So I guess people are thinking what people are thinking is that this money is being diverted to gold first and foremost, that they're kind of doing that, and then the next step. I was listening to an interesting argument where, when you're an institution, you have all kinds of rules about how much you can allocate to different things. And say you enter into this chaotic environment and you have the task of protecting some of your downside and your capital, you're not allowed to go, as far as I know, you're not allowed to go like 100% gold necessarily. Like no one will go 100% gold. But so you're moving into the universe where, okay, there's a lot of chaos. It's all of this stuff is going on. And I just think increasingly there's going to be a slice of Bitcoin. There'll just be like a slice of Bitcoin in all of this stuff. And then that's obviously the hope that people have hoped for quite some time. It looks like, as Funky mentioned, it's not enough data to know that for sure. maybe that's the first side. The caveat to that is, and this is the one kind of overhang for Bitcoin that people have just like got a question mark on. Is it just being propped up by Saylor? Obviously, we had the news today reported that he had another $550 million of buying yesterday. There's now a couple of more institutions who are kind of playing this game. We always report on Metaplanet in Japan. We've got GameStop now who are entering that arena. There's a couple of others that are kind of I think Rumble have started doing it with their treasury. So, you know, maybe there's going to be a couple of more. Once there's a few and like that snowball has started rolling, then I think you're less concerned. But as things stand, people are just wondering, well, if those 4 people stop, does that mean that's so the question is that the only reason it's kind of correlated to gold at the moment? Any reflection there from either of you? If not, I'll go to
I mean, maybe that's why we have these like.
Sorry, go for it, Ryan. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like maybe this is why we have like these periods of like Bitcoin pumping when like the rest of the S&P market and everything is down, because you have like these new big institutions who've suddenly been like, okay, we clearly see like Michael Saylor buying it, you're seeing like BlackRock buying it, maybe this is our chance to get in. And that's why we have this weird arbitrage that every time you'll see S&P pump and you'll see Bitcoin pump, and then you'll see S&P go down and Bitcoin all of a sudden is either stable. So I feel like there's a good argument there that like maybe it's these new institutions, they're just buying it and preventing the price from not like nuking even more. And I think that's a good argument for exactly what you mentioned.
Okay. So, I mean, they're definitely playing a role here. There's a non-trivial amount of money that they are throwing around, particularly strategy. So curious to hear Mindless's thoughts on this conversation. Mindless, welcome to the stage again. It's been a while since you've been up with us. Good to have you back. What are your thoughts on this Bitcoin dominance that we're experiencing and what it means for the rest of the market?
Hey everyone, yeah, thanks. It's been a while. My apologies, I've been away and definitely missed you guys. And I always love to tune in. I want to chime in quickly on the gold discussion and then stables. I don't buy the narrative that gold is moving because of what's happening right now in the ecosystem and the markets. If you just have a look at the technical breakout for gold, that started like last year this time. That's when it broke the 2000 resistance level with strength, and it's been upwards only since. And if you look back historically, gold hasn't really moved during times of panic. It moves a year to 24 months after. So 2008, great example, the crash happened. For an entire year, gold went down and sideways. And then at the end of 2009, so 24 months later, that's when it began its up run. COVID was a good one. So 2021, February, March, the huge crash, well, gold crashed alongside it. In fact, it ended up in late 2024, lower than it was in 2021. And then it was late 2024 till now, that's when the real move happened. So I think what you're seeing now is just a consequence of like the $4 trillion that were printed during COVID. And one, I think, point you've not discussed is China. They've been the world's largest gold accumulator for a decade. I think they, on record, have added 600 tons of gold in the last 5 years. That's just what they announced. I think the official the figure's probably twice as much. They, in that time, have produced 6,000 tons of gold. None of it has left China. It's just hoovered it all up. So between that, $4 trillion printed during COVID and the huge Chinese buying, I think now this is when you're seeing the move finally show in gold, and we're kind of just trying to piece that with what we're seeing with tariffs and kind of conflating the two. I don't think they're related. I just think gold's a slow mover. Stables are a good one. I don't like the idea of pinning a physical asset to crypto. I think it's just doesn't make sense. Why have a decentralized asset that's centralized, or having centralized assets on a decentralized ledger? Stable coins are one issue, but I think if you go down the gold route, you've just added another middleman on top of that, a storage facility, a Brinks, an auditor, certificators, plus an entity that's wrapping it up and offering it to you with another package on another centralized platform. I think at some point it gets a little silly.
Is there a way how you would see stable coins work for you personally? Is it if they would be backed by BTC at a point where BTC is mature enough to do that? Are you generally thinking that stables, despite having like a big market cap, is just something you don't personally like for the reasons you just mentioned?
Yeah, so BTC is in my name, so I'm going to go back to the old BTC philosophies here. I'm not a fan of stablecoins that are backed by the dollar simply because, well, USDT can freeze your wallet at any time they like. So you're just one government mandate away from having all of that confiscated from you. I think discussions of some sort of cryptographic-based, smart contract-based stable mechanism at some point will work. We've not cracked that. They've all failed so far. So I don't know. I remain hopeful that somebody's going to solve that problem at some point. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Look,
Ledge, I'm just coming in from the audio here. I don't know if the video is coming out.
that's weird. Yeah, we can hear you. It's weird to just hear you, not be able to see you, but we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am here. I am listening. Mindless. One question then. Follow up. Thinking forward, how are you like personally allocating or thinking about this? You're obviously a traditional Bitcoin person. This must be your dream, right? Like the way that things are playing out, it looks like it's going in the right direction. Although, as you said, some of this might have been forecast a little bit earlier. Is there a particular way that you are positioning yourself for the next 6 to 12 months, or how are you seeing this play out?
Yeah, sure. So with respect to gold first, I'm quite fortunate. A lot of my family is of varying backgrounds, and a lot of them are leveraged to gold. So that kind of comes part and parcel of just being the type of person I am from the background I am. I've never really needed to add more gold to my allocation and exposure. It's good to see it going up, but not really interested in trying to trade that. Like, I think the returns here in crypto are a lot easier. I think from the BTC and crypto side, I think we've seen the majority of the downturn already. Unless we see some sort of crazy rejection from 100K back down to like 80, then I'll be worried and I'll think, oh shit, wait, are we going back down to 70? Is that happening? For now, I had a bunch of orders that were executed at 75K. I don't think we'll be heading back there. I think the damage has been done. Tariffs are probably not going to come back. They realize they weren't a good idea. I think we'll hit the 90-day mark and they'll just forget about the tariffs altogether and we'll move on into maybe 100K and upwards. So yeah, allocating more into crypto, in my opinion.
Interesting. Fascinating stuff. Appreciate your additional insight there. One thing I would just say, and then I'll throw it back to you, Ledge, to, I guess, close out the show. We run over a little bit over time, so we won't necessarily get into the creator coin discussion, but we'll definitely do that yet tomorrow when Zora is launching. The one thing I would say, based on what you just said, Minus, is there's a lot of like emotion on the timeline, and one thing that you've got to just keep an eye out for is just the charts and the fees. The two things I'm looking at, I know a lot of people like to do the TA. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of chart analysis, but I am a fan of looking at who's making the money and checking that out. So, I mean, if you look at the charts, it does appear to be the case that in the midst of all of that really, really bad stuff happening, we've obviously bounced quite optimistically off of that. It's not to say that there isn't more terrible things that could happen, whether that's to do with China or Ukraine or Iran. That also gets thrown in the mix every now and again too. But we have genuinely bounced quite optimistically off that. And then when you look at the fees and stuff, and when you think of Hyperliquid in that context, it's doing pretty well. I think there's reason to be certainly more optimistic than we were before. So that's my like quick addition. There might be a lot of emotion on the timeline, but just taking a step back and looking with a fresh set of eyes on the charts and on the numbers probably give you some more confidence in whichever direction you want to take things. That's my final reflection. Ledge, I'm going to throw it back to you to close the show. It feels weird closing out the show without being able to see anyone. So I feel like I'm not allowed to close it. So throwing it back to you.
You're muted, Ledge. I can't hear you.
Beautiful. I think we'll touch on the Zora TGE tomorrow. Either way, there's a bigger discussion to be had there, so there's no point in trying to rush that right now, especially as the token launch is tomorrow. Either way, and let's close the show for today. As I said, thank you, Bichek, thank you, Rahim, for hosting the show with me today. Thank you, Funky, thank you, Mindless, for joining us on stage and for your contributions. Also, thank you to everyone in the audience. We are back after our extended weekend, and of course, we're going to be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X, live on YouTube, and then posted on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts too. Have a great day and see you tomorrow.